Third video on this subject of Max Lucado, and I just want to talk about the idea of imitating or mocking Max Lucado's persona, right? Now, does Max Lucado really talk like this? Does he really laugh like this? Does he really say, "Hi, I'm Max Lucado, I'm America's pastor"? Does he really say that? I don't know. I assume not. I've never heard the man speak, so I have no idea. But I've read his writing. His writing is very good. He's a very gifted, a very talented writer. He writes in the spirit, I think, in my opinion, of like Charles Dickens. I mean, it's very like a rural, very pastoral. It's very vintage. It's very like, warm, and it's like comfort reading, basically. I mean, it's good. It's like comfort food, mashed potatoes and corn on the cob and sliced ham. I mean, it's comfort food. It's like comfort reading. I like his writing. I don't really consider it to be Christian. I consider it to be Christian-esque. It's like sort of Christian. It's like Christian with the power of God taken out of it, which is what modern churches are all about. They're all about emasculating society, removing the male identity, the male influence, the male role model, the male figurehead of leadership and strength. That's what they're all about. They're all about, just limp-wristed lisp, talking, living up to the expectations of the tightly girdled church ladies. I mean, there's really no point to being a man in a church today. They're just a bunch of, like my kids would say when they were in elementary school. They're just a bunch of he-she's. That's when you have somebody you can't tell whether they're a man or a woman. It's a he-she, And some people are like that. It's no slight to them. It's just the way they are. They can't help it. It's not like a manufactured, contrived thing like all this other gender bending stuff is. It's just a naturally occurring reality. Some people are kind of androgynous. Some people are very androgynous. And that's just the way they are. Nobody should fault them or try to force them to conform to some artificial standard, whether that standard be a ideal male or an ideal female. No, they just are who they are, and they should be left alone to be who they are. It's the artificiality that is what causes all the deformities, and the destruction of people, individuals, and the destruction of the fabric of society. I mean, that's the art. That's the bad stuff. But I just want to make commentary on the fact that I don't know how Max Lucado actually is. I've never heard him speak. I don't really care to. I don't feel that I need to. I might someday go out of my way to find out, because maybe it would be interesting. I don't know. I think it would be amazing if I got it right, and I've never even heard it. That would be amazing. I don't think I did, though. I don't think I would be shocked if he actually talks like this and laughs like that. But the thing that I want to clarify and pontificate about is the idea of theatrically imitating somebody's aura, or their energy, or their spirit, or their attitude, or their what it is that they represent, because I think it's interesting. At first, it struck me as like a very nebulous, very suspect and nebulous concept. It's like, what is this? I mean, I've never even heard of it. So what is it exactly? Is this even a legitimate concept? And so I started thinking about it, and I said, well, wait a minute. Let's suppose that somebody was challenged to imitate Ted Bundy. Now, if you're under 30 years old, you probably don't know. You may not know who Ted Bundy is. Ted Bundy was a notorious serial. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Serial killer. Back in the 1980s. Maybe did his reign of terror extend up into the 1990s? I do not know. But for certain it was the 1980s. And a horrible, evil person who was, subjected to capital punishment. He was killed, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with the electric chair. Maybe it was lethal injection, I don't know, but I think it was the electric chair. what's his name? Dobson, James Dobson of Family Research Council, famously went out to be with him on his last day, maybe the last 2 or 3 days of his life or something, I don't know, and just minister to him and talk to him. And so I started thinking, what if somebody was asked to imitate this person? And what Ted Bundy did was he seduced young women at bars and clubs to come back to his apartment, or to let him come to their apartment with him. And then once he did, he killed them. I mean, like brutally, horribly, horrifically murdered them, you know. And if I'm not mistaken, he like dismembered the bodies. I mean, it was just horrible. It was horrible. And so the point is that Ted Bundy was, by all accounts, a charming person. He was good-looking, clean-cut, and charming. So if somebody were saying, imitate Ted Bundy, right? And I put on some nice clothes, combed my hair, and acted like a very charming person, just like people like Max Lucado do. I mean, they're Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, you know, whoever. These people, I mean, they're experts at charm. Experts. Let me emphasize that fact. They are experts at being charming, you know? So if I imitated Ted Bundy that way and failed to represent anything that would suggest that something was wrong, right? Would that be a true and reliable representation of Ted Bundy? I think most people would say, no, that's not true and reliable. That's ridiculous. The guy was a horrible man. There should be something in your imitation to show people how horrible he was, or at least that he was horrible, right? So that really speaks to me. It speaks to me and says that, you know what? Really, the truest impersonation that you can give of a person is an impersonation of their spirit, of their energy, of their aura, of their attitude, or whatever you want to call it, you know? I'm not saying all of those are the same, but they all overlap, you know? So, so to me, you know, because Max Lucado is charming, and because he has this high station and this elevated title and sells books and is worth over $10 million and yada, 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 so on and so forth and so forth and so on. I mean, should we really be impressed with that? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think a person, I think it's probably wrong to say that we should take the worst thing that a person does and use that to represent them as a whole. But at the same time, sometimes you kind of can. I guess sometimes I can't really delineate how that plays out in this case. But suffice it to say, I have strong suspicions that it's not just Max Lucado. It's tons of these preachers. I think the church is very highly infiltrated. Not at the lower levels, because at the lower levels of everything and anything, it doesn't matter what it is. Nobody knows what the heck is going on. I mean, it just doesn't. The low-level Nazis, they didn't know what the heck was going on. Maybe, you know, everybody has some idea, but it's always a vague idea, not enough of an idea to actually say anything about, unless you're like me and you're willing to take like a little, you know, a little shred of an idea and just start like drilling into it and really like putting a magnifying and a microscope to it and looking at it real close. Most people aren't willing to do that because they don't like the risk factor associated with that, right? I mean, what if you're wrong, which you could be? I mean, you're just looking at a little tiny piece of something. You might have the context all completely messed up. You might be misinterpreting it completely, you know, and then you're going to get in all kinds of trouble. You're going to suffer all kinds of social judgment and ostracization. That's a tough word to say right there. Ostracizing. I'll just say that instead of the other version of it. You're going to suffer all kinds of social ostracizing. That is such a hard word to say. Ostracization. You're going to suffer. You might suffer financial penalties. You might suffer hardship. You might, I mean, who knows what you might suffer? When you start thinking about this, your mind can just go crazy. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What if, you know, the sheriff, or what if the mayor, or the, you know, and the mayor and whatever, you know, what if you start talking about a subject that some famous person has a direct personal interest in? Well, you might just catch them. They might just get wind of what you're saying, and on a day when they happen to be in a bad mood, you know, I mean, Anyway, they're in a bad mood to begin with, and then they hear you talking about something they have an interest in, and it's like, you know, any other time in their life they would just not care because you're nobody to them, but at this particular time they happen to care, and they happen to raise their finger, and when they raise their finger, 300 people go into action because their aide knows what it means when he raises his finger. I mean, that's the way power and authority works, right? You have an aide that knows every little